Well, hi everybody, and welcome to Cosmic Owl Astrology podcast again. Kathy is also going to put it out on her podcast, but we are joining together again. So there's me, Kathy Biehl, and Andrew Brewer. We're all going to kind of do an election post-mortem, if you like, and look at some charts about election day. I think all three of us felt that Harris was going to win. She didn't, but we all and a lot of other astrologers kind of agree that this story of this election is not yet done. That's all I'll say. Is that how you
Yes.
would put it, Kathy? Too?
Yeah, there's more to
Yeah.
come and
There's
soon.
more to come, and soon. And we think the astrology actually tells us that too. So this is what we're going to look at. This is not coming from a sides thing. This is what the astrology is telling us. So we're going to start by I'm going to share the chart for the election day, the start of election day at Dixville Notch, New Hampshire, where the first vote was cast. We've set it at 12:01 a.m. for the start of election day. A lot of astrologers never agree what time to start, but I think it's an appropriate time to start because we wake up and it's election day. So, and right, let's dive in. I mean, as soon as I saw it, because Kathy sent me this chart, I was like, oh, holy crap. Because 28 degrees Leo is Donald Trump's ascendant, and it's very close to Vance's. I can't remember the exact degree of his because they've got almost exact same angles. The midheaven is Donald Trump's midheaven pretty much by a couple of degrees. And so the angles are the same, the houses are the same. This is like the transits to Donald Trump's chart. So dive in, guys. What do you guys want to say about this first?
The moon down there in the fifth house, the moon and
Oh,
Venus are conjunct, and they're in the sign of politics.
mhm,
The moon represents the people. They've got Venus, women's issues, and it
mhm,
is squaring Neptune at 27 Pisces in the eighth
mhm,
house of investments, other people's money, big money, dark money,
mhm,
illusion, maybe things. I mean, maybe this is, Hollywood and all of entertainment being
mhm,
involved. Maybe this is stuff that we can't see being involved. And
mhm,
that could be clouding what is going on because it's
mhm,
also in it's in a sextile to Uranus up there at the top and uh,
mhm,
Pluto in the sixth house. But I want to point out Uranus is conjunct Algol.
mhm. Yep. For
That's
the for the second time. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's beheading.
Mhm. It is well.
That's
It is beheading. Yeah, I also see Algol as kind of the raging divine feminine in many ways as well, bringing kind of a more modern kind of view on the Algol fixed star. If we, I'm not going to go into the whole myth, but the whole myth of it kind of is that Algol was such a badly treated woman. And I don't know if you've noticed, guys, but since this election, they're out. The hoods are off. There's young men kind of trolling women everywhere with going, "Your body, my choice." In other words, you have no control over yourself. Women back in the kitchen, I've seen things. Women are property. I've seen signs saying that as well. And anyway, this kind of set the scene for the election. I agree with Neptune kind of making everything unclear and foggy, can't see clearly. I also notice we're going to look at the full moon in a minute, guys. Um, and we can look at Donald Trump's chart in a way and Vance, but just know that the angles are pretty much their angles. Eris up here, which is, she really fights for the outsiders, those who've been ignored, but she's kind of very ragey and angry. She's up there in the ninth house of the courts, which I find very interesting. Anyway, Andy, what do you see?
I mean, of course, I come at it differently, right? I come
Mm-hmm,
at it more from like the clairvoyant kind of part.
mm-hmm,
And I still don't think that Trump matches a collective energy. I don't think that this is
mm-hmm,
done. Now, Trump may still end up being inaugurated, but I
mm-hmm,
think there's a lot of things yet to happen. And the other thing is that the idea, this whole incel, white boy, uh, assault on women is not going to fly. I just think again
no,
that there are more people who will be supportive of a decent, rational approach to living, and that this sort of dream that they have is not going to happen. I
mm-hmm,
do not believe that there is a gigantic shift that will happen. I don't think that we see the worst case scenario.
mm-hmm,
My expectation is that there's still ongoing collections of votes. I would expect, just as there was 4 years ago, I would expect this goes to the courts. I think there's a lot of kind of twists and turns yet to happen. He may
mm-hmm,
still win, but I still believe, and that's the only way in which I can approach it, is that he's not in sync with the majority of the United States energetically. So that is never a happy marriage. So I think there's problems
mm-hmm,
for Trump and Vance on the horizon. What that's going to be is still yet to be determined. But I'm not convinced that this is finished.
mm-hmm.
So I guess we'll see.
And
Astrology says it isn't.
yeah, and we're going to look at that. But to my mind, this chart in some ways kind of set in stone them on the election day, kind of that that was this is almost them coming up. So the belief that they won, and them announcing victory, claiming victory, the states calling all the racers and things. You could say, it was like almost like going to be set in stone with the fixed signs on that day. But we have
But
full moons and lots of things coming up. So I'm actually just going to move. I'm not going to leave
yeah,
Donald's chumping his chart right now because, as I've said, the angles are basically his angles anyway. So,
And Louise, may I jump in real quickly a
mhm,
bit about Trump's chart?
mm,
One of the things that we've talked about is the square of Uranus to his 12th house Mars.
mhm,
So he's got a 29-degree Leo ascendant. And if the ascendant for this chart for midnight is 28,
mm,
then his 12th house Mars is right on the back of that. And I think that those, like his 12th house issues,
mhm,
could come to the forefront. So it's very possible that
mm,
this is really bringing Trump to prominence. But the 12th house things that he has, the unconscious drives that he has, may help drive whatever's happening.
mm,
Trump is going to be kind of full of himself. He's going to be more full of himself, and that could lead to bad things for him as much as positive.
mm,
So even though we might see these charts as being sort of in alignment with Trump, Trump is definitely on full display, but
mhm,
that doesn't mean I mean, to quote myself, who you are is where you end up. And
mhm,
I just think that Trump uh, is kind of derailing. And so
mhm,
this bringing the 12th house Mars more into the
mhm,
open may be problematic for him as
mhm.
much as it is helpful. So I'm still of the opinion that there is still twists and turns yet to play out. We'll see.
Well, I think we all agree on that, Andy. And all I meant was for the election day chart is that's
Mm-hmm.
that's was kind of him on the day. I've
For
had the,
sure.
I've got quite a strong intuition too. I think we all have. I have kind of felt like they're too cocky and confident that they're back. We've got it. Him, the right. They're all going, yeah, we've won, and all things like that. I'm um, yeah, I think the chart for the day gave that impression. But but
And
we're good.
remember Neptune. Just remember Neptune. What is real?
Exactly. Yes. What is real? So we have a Taurus full moon coming up on November the 15th. So a week away. We're recording this November the 7th. We're about to have the first quarter moon from the last new moon. So on the full moon next Friday, November the 15th, the full moon is at 24 degrees Taurus, which I will quickly put his chart in so that we can kind of bounce in and out. I don't want to leave 3 charts up all the time because that's just too confusing for people. But I do want to show you that his midheaven is exactly at 24 degrees, the full moon. So the full moon is on his midheaven. His public face, his visibility, his his mission, his career, how the public sees him. Go on, you guys talk about this.
Well, I want to mention that Uranus has moved over the midheaven once already, and it's retrograde. And the first time it moved over was when there was a shooting.
Yes.
So shocking things that are very confusing as a precedent, something that, what is it, happens. This full moon has a culminating effect, and it makes a grand cross in his chart. So that, and it does it in his chart, it pulls in the angles, all of the angles. In Van, it does the same thing in Vance's chart, with the difference that it's not on Vance's midheaven, but it is pulling his 12th house Venus and his Mars in Scorpio, which will be conjunct the Sun, into the equation. So they both have something sudden, shocking, revelatory. And for Trump, it hits, I call it a wrecking ball. It's a wrecking ball across his place in the world.
Yes.
This cannot be, and it's in an opportunity aspect to Neptune. So in the 8th house of criminality and other people's money. So
Yes.
or deceit. This can't be, I can't see it being good news. When Uranus moves across your midheaven, your life just gets upended. I've experienced it. I've seen it with other people. Things get upended.
Yeah. Yeah, and with Uranus, it's kind of always expect the unexpected. It's upended. It's not always, so if anybody's getting Uranus on their midheaven, it's not always a bad thing, but often it's a shock that you have to kind of deal with. And I liken it to, in fact, I could look at my husband's chart way back when, the day he came home from work in the UK when we had 2 young kids saying he'd been laid off. It's that kind of shock. And then good can come out of it. It did for us.
Oh, yeah.
But for this, with it affecting all of his other angles, and with it being a fixed grand cross, fixed is very kind of fixed ideas, really kind of a bit immovable. So when a shock happens to fixed signs, I think it's always more shocking. And I tend to look for the other planets that are aspecting that shock to see where it might go. And we looked before, and that's that Neptune in the 8th house that Kathy's talked about. One of my favorites, Eris up in the 9th house, Pluto in the 6th. There's all, well, Pallas Athena.
Health, and exact in conjunct to Pallas Athena.
Yeah, and Pallas Athena is, on the moon at the start of that election day as well. So and on that Venus, a woman. So it could be any woman, or just kind of that energy of the feminine as well, kind of saying, no, we're not doing this. Anyway, just tune into that, guys, and say whatever else you want to say. I kind of feel like, he's got some big shocks and surprises coming. I agree with you, Kathy.
and they're tied to election day. And
Yeah.
Uranus is in the sign of money, and it's a planet of technology.
It is. And
I think we have to really, and forgive me for jumping in, I think we really have to look at the power, the collective power of women. And I think that we need to be really supportive of that. And what's happened within this is this whole push is to try to marginalize women.
Oh, yeah.
And I still don't believe that that's the way it's going to play out. And I think it's really imperative to us that we see that this is a stark contrast. And I think we're much better off by being inclusive. So I'm kind of editorializing here a little bit. But in terms of looking at what I think is the most likely path forward, just because there's been an election or just because someone moves into a political office, they still have to govern. They still have people that are still out there that can make choices, that can take collective action. I do not think that the United States is going to roll over, throw women, immigrants to the curb. I do not see that happening. And I think it's really a wake-up call for people. And I think there are enough people already kind of looking at it that when they wake up, they will take action. I think that these things are bad for Trump. I think it's bad for their whole white boy movement. And I persist in my theory that the United States collectively will move forward in a way that's much more inclusive and not go back to, the Civil War here. I just feel that so strongly.
Would you put Kamala's chart up?
Yeah, sure.
With this, because the Taurus full moon chart, because it hits her exactly also.
It does, but let's just quickly just prove that we were talking about Donald Trump's chart here with almost the same angles. Algol and Uranus are still square his Mars again. Kathy mentioned what happened the first time those two were conjunct. So I just kind of wanted to show that. And now
before you go, his 25-degree Venus is a sextile Uranus.
Yep, it is. Yep, there's his Venus and his Saturn, which having a Saturn Venus conjunction, especially in a sign like Cancer, indicates a lot of issues with women, probably from his mother and things like that. And that's aspected to, so much going on these things. But let's have a look at Harris's chart. Okay, I think I've got that one here. Yeah, with the full moon. So for Harris on the full moon, there's the full moon on the outside, just for anybody not tuned into the charts who's watching this, opposing the sun in Scorpio. So there's that 24-degree mark as well. This full moon is exactly on her Jupiter in Taurus.
That has to be good, you would think.
Yeah, a 12th house is a bit, people will go, oh, 12th house, the house of self-undoing, the house of all these kind of things. As a 12th houser, I don't always agree with that. I think it can be. It's a lot of fears. You don't always kind of see your strengths, and it can be hidden enemies. But often an activator like this, especially with Uranus on a Jupiter in Taurus, I think brings her kind of out of the 12th house in many ways. But Kathy, what do you?
And I can see something behind the scenes going on.
Yeah. Oh, I think there's lots behind the scenes going on. Yeah.
But this would activate it. There was another thing about this. Notice that Pallas is up there with her moon.
It is, and Pallas by transit is right on her descendant in Sagittarius, and that kind of speaks prosecutor justice to me in many ways. But, yeah, and it's right on her south node, of course. So the full moon, like to go to Andy's thing about he always looks at the degrees first. I always tune into the degrees too. And her nodes are at 24 degrees, her ascendant's at 24 degrees. So it's making kind of adjustment quincunxes and semi-sextiles of kind of making lots of adjustments and things as well to her angles. It's like, It's all kind of wild to me, all of this
And
astrology.
Neptune in the 10th is in a sextile to the Moon Uranus conjunction on her Jupiter. Her story
Mm-hmm.
is not over.
No.
Her role in this story is not over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I talked about how Eris is also at that same 24 degrees and conjunct, it's, I didn't mention before, it's conjunct Hygeia, which is holistic healing in many ways. Eris fighting for the underdog is right on her Aries moon, opposing her sun, her full moon. So her chart is also lit up. Now neither, I don't think any of us are kind of saying she'll be installed or anything like that. We're just saying it's not finished. This archetypal kind of thing between the two of them is not over in many ways. So
Well, look, there's a grand fire trine. Uh, so the
mm-hmm,
Hygeia and Eris on her moon are
mm-hmm.
trying her Mars in the third,
Oh
and
yes,
and then trining
her South
uh
Node descendant. Yeah,
mhm, and
yeah.
transiting Pallas.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and
That's kind of
also
weird energy.
Venus itself is the guide for the Taurus full moon, dispositor, whatever word you want to use. I hate the word ruler, but Venus is right on her on the series in on the full moon. Is that the right one? No, sorry, on her series. And she's Momala. You talk about Momala. I always think of series as like Momala. She is called Momala. She's got that mother energy. But this is in her seventh house, which is others. And I also, it's very much the house of politics. And Pholus, the centaur there, I love my extras, Kathy. Pholus is conjunct Venus. It's almost like she's kind of, the lid's off. She's revealing what the shadow of the other side in some ways, and how we're not nurturing and caring for each other. So again, I don't think it's really kind of about the two people in a way. This is kind of speaking to way bigger energies, which is why I love that Andy talked about tuning in to who's more in alignment with the energy of the people of the USA, which is the moon. In mundane astrology, which is the full moon. So, and moon in Taurus is very value driven, right? What are our real values? What do we really kind of look after?
What's our pocketbook? I mean, maybe
Yeah,
the information about what this is all going to cost people. I don't know. I don't
yeah.
know, but there's
Mm-hmm.
something. One other thing I want to say is my experience of Jupiter in the 12th is like a cosmic nightlight. There's a sense of no matter what, all is well.
It's like Santa Claus, isn't it? It's like, yay, it'll all be okay, kind of thing. Yeah, and this just all of their charts are just lit up. Now, I'm just going to go back to your notes, but you tell me if there's, because there's loads we'd love to look at. So we've looked at Neptune. We wanted to look at the Mars station retrograde when,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Can we start with the Mercury retrograde?
sure, of course we can.
Because there are two
Mhm.
retrogrades coming up. Retrogrades bring do-overs,
Mhm.
and they will have an overlapping period
Yeah,
in early December.
yeah.
And the first one, the Mercury retrogrades on the November 25th,
Mhm.
and it is retrograde in the sign of politics and of foreigners and belief systems and policies. So
And truth.
it's it's retrograde on her, basically on her descendant.
Mhm.
It's retrograde from November 25th until December 15th.
It goes back
And
to
look
6 degrees. Yeah. So yeah, six
So look
degrees
at what it's
Sagittarius.
look at what it's doing.
Mhm.
As it starts its retrograde, it is at the degree where Venus was on November 5th, is
Mhm.
it not?
It is, I think. Yeah, I'd have to just get that chart up again. I can quickly do that. I'll just look. I won't put it up on the screen. I'll look at it myself. So Venus was indeed, well, it was, yes, exactly at that degree. 20,
Right.
yeah, Venus was 22 Sagittarius on that day,
Mhm.
conjunct the moon at 24 Sagittarius.
Right.
Well, that's really important for Trump's chart. I mean,
Yes.
Venus is
Oh,
22 Sagittarius. That's hitting his
oh,
node and
oh, it
what is
is.
his south node and his moon?
Yep.
We'll look at his
I
chart
mean,
in
that's
a yeah, we'll look at his chart in a second. But I do oh yeah, well, there's other things I'd love to talk about, but I don't want to go crazy here. But so just looking at when Mercury retrogrades, Uranus is still on her Jupiter, bringing the surprises as well, bringing the shocks, all of those things. It's just these two are still up here. I kind of think you're right. There's so much happening behind the scenes. Uh, but Mercury retrograde is huge there. I do want to bring in my Venus star point work that I do, and I'm not going to get it on the chart because it complicates things. But we are under a Gemini Venus star point, which means that's where the Sun and Venus met on June the 4th. And Kamala Harris is a Gemini star point, and her Gemini star point is at 28 degrees Gemini. And Pallas Athena, my favorite one of my favorite asteroids. My business is named after her owl, and I have her tattoo. She is wise justice. She is a wise justice warrior, and that's opposing Kamala's Venus star point exactly as well. So, just so many things.
I love
It's
that, by the way. Thank you. That's incredible. Thank you.
yeah, you're very
Well,
welcome.
and notice that Athena, Pallas Athena, is trine her moon.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, trying her
So
moon,
maybe
and
the
well,
warrior,
and
maybe the warrior
sextile
comes back
has
out.
yeah, and sextile her son too. So I kind of still think she's in there fighting already. So that's kind of the next retrograde. Did you want to look at Donald's chart with it? Because it's
Yes.
oh
Yes.
my God, yeah. Yeah. So Mercury retrograde is down here for anybody wanting to tune in his fourth house, which is basically kind of basis of security, stability. It's the base of the chart, and it's almost exactly conjunct his moon and his south node. It's even more exactly opposing his 22-degree Gemini sun, so it's just hitting his full moon eclipse energy that he was born with majorly.
And it's in conjunct his Saturn, which
Yeah,
is conjunct his
and
Venus.
yeah,
So that's adjustment,
uh-huh.
news adjustment, and
Mhm.
notice that Uranus is still parked on his midheaven. It will be there exactly in March,
And it
end of
will,
March, by the
and
minute, by the minute.
and it's quincunx. I prefer that word, but it's quincunx.
There we go.
Quincunx is midheaven. It's public visibility.
And there's an adjustment. This
Oh,
Mercury retrograde is going to dredge up something involving both of them.
mm-hmm. It is. Yeah.
Andy, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Saturn Venus conjunction there in Cancer is super significant, and I think that the quincunx to the moon is super significant, and I think it throws a fourth house kind of element because we've got Cancer with the conjunction, and we've got the
Mm-hmm.
moon, and so there's a fourth house kind of simpatico between the two of them, and I think that Trump has issues, psychological issues, and I think one of the key components of this whole election is the wounded boy that can't quite figure out what he's trying to do and has to work it out and get it under control. I think Trump, in some sense, is emblematic of this wounded male destructo kind of energy. And I do think that Kamala is, in some sense, the embodiment, as a focal point of a strong, powerful woman, which is why a lot of them are freaking out and so determined to suppress her. I still believe that basically it's an emotional battle. And to me, again, I'm not primarily an astrologer, but when I look at that conjunction of Saturn and Venus in conjunct with the quincunx to the moon, and is that the south node? Which I forget which node is which on his moon.
Yeah,
but that both of those brings it down to the fourth house. And so while this full moon is happening, we're talking about it hitting the midheaven, it's also hitting the IC as well. So a lot of these hidden Freudian kind of things could be coming to the surface. And I still think that women and the people that support a rational approach to life will step up and say, no, Moss, we ain't doing this. I persist. I persist in my theory that it is not going to fly the way that it may appear right this second. Now, this election could still go to Trump, but that does not mean that the darkest dark scenarios that people may fear will manifest. I just don't think they will. And I think that's a credit to kind of the collective energy of more people in the United States. I'm like, go girls. I think we still find a way to offset this. So but to me, all those things going down to the fourth house seem important to me.
Yeah.
I'm not the famous astrologer in the family, but that's how it seems to me.
I would like to point out one thing. I just drew some lines on for anybody watching the video, that this is a finger of fate or a finger of God, a yod, pointing right at that Mercury retrograde, and therefore pointing at his moon south node. The fourth house at an even more mundane level is the home. And, we already know that we had the documents case found at the home. Kathy sent us an article earlier today that one of Trump's major donors in Florida had a major raid yesterday. Do you want to talk a bit about that one?
Let's see.
It was Alfie Oakley. I got the article actually.
Oakes, Oakes.
Oakes, yeah.
But what an arm of the Inspector General's office of the Department of Defense was there. And that particular office that was there is charged with illegal transfer of U.S. technology to foreign entities, Sagittarius, and cyber crimes and computer intrusions. So I think this finger of God, or this yod, this finger of fate, could very well have something to do with stuff that went on at Mar-a-Lago, or that has been going on at Mar-a-Lago.
And so this Alfie Oakes home is North Naples, Florida. So, it's very close. So, were things being hidden there, or, but it's home as well. It's people's homes being raided, and things might come out from all of this. I think it's pretty huge that this has occurred at the same time as we're approaching this full moon. All these energies lining up at those degrees that we've talked about. I think there's going to be some real kind of truth coming out, another side of Sagittarius, especially with this Mercury in Sagittarius. And because it's a finger of fate and a finger of God, that's a really big point at his south node moon. Interesting.
And then the Mars retrograde folds. Well, actually, one more thing. Mars and Venus, Saturn and Venus in the 11th house of group associations, Trump word, and money. Mars has already crossed over that.
Yes.
The planet transiting Mars has crossed over that, and it's going to go retrograde, which we'll look at in a second. And then it's going to go over that conjunction 2 more times.
It is. Yeah.
So, and when it first went over that, the one news report that I remember is that Trump's attorneys had offered, Stormy Daniels tried to pay off a judgment she owes him. And her attorneys offered her a reduction in the judgment if she signed an NDA to never mention Trump again in her life, which was essentially
trying to pay her off again
for in an election cycle. So that may or may not turn out to be anything important, but that time period is going to get hit again in the next couple of months.
Yeah.
When does it go retrograde over that conjunction? Do you know when that is, Kathy?
I knew
exactly.
I can do it. Let me put it in. But I did want to. Something else came up while thought it'll come back.
I mean, if it's not easy, don't worry about it. I was just curious about that because
it's real easy. But
I think it's important because when they go back, I've always found that in those situations,
3 days before
something is initiated. When something's initiated, right when it goes over the first time direct, then when it goes over retrograde is like something's happening and it has a resolution point when it comes back the second time. I mean, that's a simplistic way to look at it, but that happens a lot. So it would not surprise me that whatever was kicking when it first went over it will have a bit of a crisis point and then some sort of resolution when it turns direct and goes back over it the second time.
Absolutely.
So and that should be entertaining too.
And I would say the finger of fate and yod that I pointed out is basically activated again as soon as Mars goes back to that, because then it's in a sextile with Uranus and all pointing at this fourth house again. So,
and that's got to be powerful.
Yeah.
Louise, don't you think that's got to be like super significant?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Kathy, you saw something.
Aren't there 3 passes?
Yes, this is the second one. This is
the second pass, and the third pass is when it's direct. This is when it's retrograde, right?
Yeah, this is the retrograde.
Yeah, it'll go direct and retrograde and direct.
Yeah, so it passes Venus on January the 17th. If I put it to Saturn, exactly, that's 2 days after inauguration. That's January the 22nd. So something's going to be.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Mars.
I don't think that inauguration, I'm just going to say it. I do not believe the inauguration happens on January the 20th. So we'll see.
I don't know about that.
Well,
I just said it. So that's what I think.
Mars and there are others who agree. Mars and Cancer, fighting for home, fighting for family.
Yes.
Mars is a god of war. He rules the military. That's all I'm going to say about that.
It does. It does rule the military. And look at Mars and Uranus on that pass. They're almost exactly in aspect. And I can go to the final pass too. So let's go to the final pass. That's April the 1st. Oh, April Fool's Day. And by that point, Uranus is back again, right on his midheaven again. And Mars is on the Saturn. So... and Neptune, and it has moved into Aries by then.
Isn't that interesting? So the fog has cleared.
And the North Node and Venus are where Neptune is now.
Isn't that interesting? So the fog burns off. This is a very bumpy road. This is a very
Neptune in Aries. Neptune in Aries has a 12th house aspect to Mars. I'm getting, again, I have my own bizarre ways of looking at astrology. So Trump has Mars in the 12th. So when Neptune goes into Aries, there is a simpatico, energetic hello that's going to happen when that takes place, in my opinion, because we have to look at the Neptunian qualities of the 12th house and how that's thrown into the sun because it's in Leo. And I think that Neptune in Aries will be a shock to Trump's system. That is my opinion. We'll see.
But also, to bring in my lovely asteroids that I love again, Vesta is, really Vesta is the state. It's the flame that keeps the state burning, the empire burning, if you like. Is his Vesta is at 28 Pisces, and on that day, the North Node and Venus are on Vesta. So, I would say. I think that's significant too, kind of about moving more towards this, knowing that we're all in this together, all of that kind of energy. Yeah. I think people are going to start realizing really fast that, we're all in this together. And what's kind of been unleashed with this. Because it's getting a bit frightening out there when boys are roaming around a high school shouting, "Your body, my choice." That's happened. and other things, lots of things. So anyway, I say it's getting frightening, but I also agree with you, Andy, that people are going to see it. The clouds are going to part and go, "Holy shit." This is like...
I don't think that people are going to allow that to happen. Just because there's some irate white boy bully doesn't mean that there's not some other man that will step up and say something about it. I think it's really important that men, again, I'm going to editorialize here, stand up and make sure that those voices are not acted upon. I'm still super optimistic. And I mean, basically the last 8 years of my life, I've been trying to help people deal with those types of fears. And I know those fears are very, very prominent right now. And in some sense, the darkest parts of their 12th house and the collective is coming to the forefront. I still persist in my belief that we will counteract that as a collective, and it is not going to go down this path. And in some sense, real quickly, the darkest aspects and the darkest personalities are coming out in the light of day, and we'll know who they are, and they'll be more easy to identify. We'll be able to take action against that. I'm still, fingers crossed, an optimist, and I still think this doesn't play out quite as bad as it may appear right this second. We'll see.
No, I agree. I completely agree.
Let's hope.
Well, I actually agree with you, but I feel like, people are going to start to see this, so that they go, yes, it might raise fear initially, but that is going to prompt people to take action afterwards to protect, which is the higher side of Mars, Anyway, yeah. So this is when Mars passes Venus for the third time in Donald's chart. That's April the 7th. So those two are very close together. Uranus still in the exact sextile with pretty much with Uranus on Trump's Algol, incidentally, at that point, back on his Algol, natally. Beheading, not necessarily literally. But none of us are like, suggesting he goes under the guillotine. But it's that's what Algol is associated with, chopping the head of the kind of monster off, kind of thing.
And Venus is exactly trine Mars and Cancer on that day.
Oh, so it is. So it is.
Venus and Mercury are in a conjunction, exactly trine.
And Mercury's there as well, retrograde again.
And the North Node.
And the North Node, yeah. And Saturn.
Karma, baby.
Oh my God. Venus and Saturn are almost exactly conjunct on that day.
So I'll just throw out the 7th house, this house of partners, yes. But it's also the house of open enemies. And we've got law, responsibility, the government, a woman, information, the North Node flowing in a trine with Mars. I don't think this is going to play out the way he thinks it's going to right now.
No, I don't either.
At all.
I don't.
I mean, that if he hadn't just claimed presidency, I would say that's a woman judge coming to get him in a big way.
Or
who knows?
Or a prosecutor. Yeah. And I've long said that, currently, as what's happening, Saturn has been retrograde in this 7th house as well, and Centaur, Nessus, revealer of abuses of power, has been slowly kind of revealing things, and that's all active in this. By this time, Saturn stationing direct November 15th, is that on the full moon, right?
On the full moon.
On the full moon, Nessus will have stationed direct. After that too, there's Momala. And I, to listeners, that's not necessarily Kamala. This is that mothering energy, Cancer. People's eyes are going to be awakened. I think that this is not nurturing anybody, like feeding our needs. It's not supporting each other. It's kind of not helping each other. And I actually do think a lot of people kind of may regret their vote for him, and feel this sense of grief and loss about that, which is other sides of Neptune. But then I think that'll mobilize people into action to change, as well. So anyway, because of course this is all square his full moon as well, really, pretty much. So yeah. Wow.
Can we fold the Mars retrograde into this?
Oh yeah, well, this was the Mars retrograde, wasn't it?
No. Well, but I mean, stationing at 6.
Oh yeah, we didn't look at that yet. The station,
right.
The station retrograde. Yes, let's go back to that. Okay, so Mars stations retrograde on December the 6th, at 6 degrees Leo, which is also the north node of the USA chart. But anyway, in his 12th house.
Stop. Did you just say that Mars goes retrograde on the north node of the US chart?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
And when Mars stations
all right.
When Mars stations retrograde,
whoa,
Mercury is retrograde.
Yeah. It's down here still. And we've just had the Cazimi 14 Sagittarius. So, it's just past the middle of the retrograde. So things are being really, yeah.
and Mercury retrograde will be sextile his Chiron and Juno exactly.
Yeah.
And it would be square Nessus and Saturn.
Yes.
December 6th.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So this starts the journey that's going to take Mars back to those points that we talked about.
Yeah.
And it's going to also drag in the US, because not only does Mars station retrograde on the US North Node, Mercury is on the US ascendant.
Yes, it is.
And it's someplace else really interesting as well.
Wow. That's pretty
it's in Biden's first house. It's on Biden's ascendant, and it's on Kamala's ascendant.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
This story is not over.
Oh, this story is so not over. Yeah. Do you want to look at the station?
And there's also other people at play here. The United States just doesn't have its own planet wander around. There are other countries. There's NATO. There's all sorts of interglobal connections here that are going to have a significant opinion about what's going to happen with Trump as president, and how that's going to impact NATO, how that's going to impact Ukraine, how that's going to impact a whole lot of things. So there are a lot of factors that are still going to come into play. It's not just who got the most votes. And I still think it's going to get complicated.
And it could also be the foreign lands that may let me just say allegedly working with his alliances as well, this person's alliances. And I do want to point out, though, that on this day, Mars stations retrograde. Yeah, Mercury's here. It's also opposing Jupiter in Gemini, which is retrograde on.
This is just super. These points are like super tight. That's crazy.
On his Uranus.
Well, that's crazy.
Okay,
I find it really interesting.
So I also want to point out. Jupiter on his Uranus. Jupiter was exactly on his Uranus with Saturn exactly square his Uranus, with Venus exactly square his Uranus
Hmm.
on August 19th at the on the Aquarius full moon, which blew up his chart
Yeah.
because it was on his axis, right in the angles, and the day that the Democratic National Convention
Yes.
started. So
Yes.
the election story is still continuing
Mhm.
when Mars goes retrograde, and Mars and Mercury will both be retrograde. They overlap until the
Mhm.
15th of December.
Yep, they
And
do.
Mercury will go back to 6 degrees Sagittarius, which is trining the
Mhm.
Mars station.
Yep. Yep.
Has anybody done a
And
chart on when she was officially confirmed as the candidate and when Trump was officially
oh,
confirmed and compared those two charts?
I don't know. Probably I don't know. I don't have time to put more charts up, but I do want to point
I mean,
one thing
I
out.
would be curious about that myself, but
I do want to point one thing out. Maybe we can do another one, Andy, later and find those charts. But you mentioned that Mercury goes back to 6 degrees Sagittarius, which is in the fire trine to the Mars station retrograde, but also to go to the Mars station direct in February at 17 degrees Cancer. That's also kind of speaking to a lot of these energies as well and making a quincunx. The two retrogrades, there was something else. There was because Mercury is 22 Sagittarius. Is it at the midpoint of the Mars retrograde, or maybe when the sun opposes it?
Oh, maybe.
Mm, I'm just going to have a look at that. And if I can't find it now, I know I saw something and I will find it and maybe we'll do another one of these. So January the 15th. No, it wasn't that one either. Mm-mm. But look at the midpoint of that retrograde though, which incidentally for, the non-astrologers out there and things, the midpoint of a retrograde like the Mars retrograde is usually when the Mars is or the planet is closest to the Earth and it's kind of more kind of impact is even greater. So look where Mars is then. Conjunct is Venus. Sorry.
There's one other, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know how you would find this,
Mm-hmm.
but at the end of December, early January, Mars is going to go back to where it was on election day. It will be at 1
Oh.
Leo.
Oh, well, let me just put it to 1 Leo. That my software will do that. So
I
Mars.
clearly am going to change my software. This is just too good.
Oh, I know. I love this software. It's fantastic. So on which day did you say? January the 3rd, we at 1 Leo or
Oh, oh,
059. So
oh, January 3rd is when the new Congress comes in.
it is, yes. And then so it's taken it to 059. So, it's just gone back from, so even if I just go 1 minute back, it's at 1 Leo there on January the 3rd when the new Congress is installed. When was it last at 1 Leo? It sounded like there was something.
On election day.
Oh, so
I
let me
think it was
see.
like 1 Leo. What isn't it like 1 Leo 24 or something like that?
Yeah, we'll get it close, but yeah, it would have been because it's at 1 on November the 6th evening. It would have been yeah. I'm not going to get it to the exact
No,
degree,
no,
but yeah,
that's okay.
yeah. So
So
there's Mars going back to that 1 degree again, January the 3rd when Congress sits, back again April the 20th in his 12th house, back into his 12th house. After the retrograde, after all the reviewing, revealing, revisiting, the change, all of those kind of things.
so it is possible with this that the election really isn't resolved until the spring.
Yeah, it really is. One other thing though, Kathy, when Mars goes back to where it was on election day, it will be in trine to Neptune and Mercury in Aries, Mars guided sign in his 8th house. Wow.
So 8th and 12th houses involved.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. Now, we're not making predictions here. We just wanted to show people this story is not over. This really is not. And by the time Mars does this at the end of April the 20th, Jupiter's direct then going back over his, well, it will have gone back over his Uranus. It'll be back on its north node. There's just so much yet to come unfolding. All these degrees keep being hit. I know there was something else about that was aspecting that 22 Sagittarius, because Mercury's stationing retrograde on my sun, so I've been paying attention to it. But I can't remember what it was, so I'll figure that out. So yeah, I don't want to look at his chart anymore.
Yep.
What do we want to look at next? Because I think you've mentioned the things with Harris. Did you want to look at Elon's chart?
That might be illuminating.
Right. Okay. Musk. Here he is. Okay, I'll just put his chart on its own for now, and then you can tell me what charts you want me to show it with. Well, oh my God. I look at
so his what? Yeah, look at that.
Revealing abuses of power.
On top of Trump, in between Trump's Uranus and Sun.
Yeah, basically right on Trump's Uranus North Node Sun conjunction. Yeah.
His Mercury's on the US Sun. That's taking over communication.
Starlink.
Yeah.
Twitter.
I mean, and Twitter. I think, obviously he's abused his power with, both how he's used Twitter, how he's used Starlink. I think that's going to be revealed. At least I think there's more to come out about that too. Wow.
Oh, look, he has Mars in the 8th house at 0, Aquarius. So Pluto's going to sit on that starting on
Mars
November.
is opposing his Mars.
Oh, it's at 20.
Yeah,
20 Aquarius.
Oh, it's at 20. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
So,
that's okay.
Oh, I thought it was 0. Gee, my eyes. I should put my glasses on.
That's okay. But
however, it's got Neptune at 0 Sagittarius.
He does.
And Pluto is going to be making a sextile to that from
going into his 8th house too.
Going into the 8th, but
yeah.
And then when Neptune and then Saturn move into Aries, they're going to be trining that Neptune. Actually, it's going to make a grand trine because he's got Juno at 1 Leo. Okay, so when Mars goes over that Juno, that could be very interesting.
Oh, it could. Very much.
It already has, but that's contracts.
It is. Yeah.
That's contracts.
Just getting in bed with Elon could have been a bit of a mistake for this currently elected administration, shall we say? Whatever you want to call.
He's part of the unfolding of the story, is what I'm going to say.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Definitely. There's so much coming out about that. This is also the things we said about Harris's Gemini energy at the start. Her Venus star point is at 28 Gemini, his ascendant. The series Kamala is very close to her ascendant and North Node at 26 Gemini. I think she's in full prosecutor mode behind the scenes in some way or other.
In his 9th house, what is that thing that looks like the old Nabisco?
This one?
Yeah, what is that?
Yeah, that's Cariclo, which is Chiron's wife, who is the
Yeah.
space holder for healing. She's kind of like this cosmic midwife doula. Neptune's on that. She's holding space for us to kind of step into this more healing energy, in my opinion. Cariclo is a beautiful energy. So mhm. Yeah. Wow.
More to come.
Way more to come. Mercury will be retrograde in his sixth house. Um,
That full
Obviously,
moon, that
uh,
full moon is going to pull in his Jupiter.
oh, let me get the full moon up again. Has it been recently used? Yes, it is. There it is. So there's the full moon there. Okay.
And then the sun is on his Jupiter in the house of speculation.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. And his Jupiter is at 27 degrees, which is in a sextile to transiting Neptune right now. So
Mm-hmm.
a trine, sorry, with Neptune up there. So this is
It's also the house of children, and he does have a
oh
transgendered child who has been speaking out a
very
lot.
yeah, because he
Uh,
he did kind of disowned her because she's trans. So yeah, she's been speaking out an awful lot. Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh yes. All these stories are converging. You see, like for the listener, this is why you can't just look at one transit. You can't just look at one day. You have to look at like the patterns, the cycles, the degrees, like Andy says. And then I also think you're going to do have to kind of tune in energetically to all of this. But look where Jupiter is on the full moon.
on his Venus.
His Venus Nessus conjunction, that centaur that reveals abuses of power. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but
In the 12th house of, oh, I don't know, backroom deals, criminality, many things. And it's in the sign of communication. And,
yeah.
so he owns a car company, he runs Starlink, and he
Mhm.
owns Twitter. Well, with a lot of other people's money backing up there in the
Yeah.
eighth house.
And also, just to kind of talk about what's been revealed about Musk lately, it's revealed that he was actually an illegal immigrant who worked illegally in the country for 10 years, I think. I wouldn't be surprised if something more is found out about that. Especially with all of this in his ninth house of foreign lands and cultures. Amazing.
Andy, anything?
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that both of these men have Mars and fixed signs and water houses. And I still believe that their unresolved, wounded little boy is causing them to do crazy things and act out in crazy ways. And I think that that's why they appeal to other wounded little boys who are also acting out in crazy ways. And I think it's time, and again, I'm back in my editorial, that we try to help heal that, but we don't enable that. That's why I still persist that women are going to save us and they're going to start doing it right now. I persist in this, and I believe that's how it's going to play out. But and you also, Musk and Trump, their Mars is not quite exactly opposing each other, but close. What is it, like 6 degrees off? I think the wounded male here is the issue. The incel, fear of
Absolutely.
women is the dominant motif of Trump's appeal, in my opinion. And I still maintain that not every person on earth is going to support that, and that it's important that we try to be optimistic but directed. And I'm still super optimistic that we will offset this wounded white boy energy and make things better. So
and
I hope so. We'll see.
I'd love to kind of add something to that. that also, all these white women, especially that have voted for Trump, I think their unhealed trauma is going to be revealed as well, of being kind of trapped in these patterns of patriarchal dominance and, think, anyway, but you talked about Mars being some, Mars opposing Mars. Harris's Mars is almost exactly opposing his Mars, by the way. So.
Where's Louise? Where is Kamala's Mars?
21 Leo.
Natally.
Oh, it's in her third house, prosecuting. The voice.
But it's
speaking.
21 Leo?
21, yeah, 21 Leo, almost exactly opposing Musk's. Yeah. And also,
so it's trine.
It will be
Trump's
trine.
Moon, then.
It's trine, yes, and it's trine where Mercury will station retrograde. It's yeah.
She's the more dominant energy here. She is the more powerful force to me. She is the more dynamic energetically. And so she can't work in isolation. She needs help, but she's a powerful force. And I think that just like one-on-one, she is the alpha dog in either of those between Musk or Trump, in my opinion. And that's fascinating that her Mars is opposing Elon Musk and pretty close to conjunct to Trump's. That's entertaining to me.
Yeah. So. But she's a very different kettle of fish. Mars.
Thank God.
Mars in Leo because of where it is in her chart and what it aspects. So, it's I agree. She's kind of like the dominant, if you like, in this story. And I don't think we've heard the last of it. Does that mean she'll end up being president? I have no idea. But that doesn't, for what we're talking about here, I don't think that kind of actually matters.
And Louise, what house did you say her Mars is natally?
I think it's in the third. Kathy, you were going to say something? So, yes, it's in the third house. Yeah.
Could you
she's able to, again, just forgive me real quickly.
Go ahead.
She's able to use that as a form of expression. Her Mars is in a house that's about expression related to Mercury.
Yeah.
Trump and Musk have Mars in places that could be, we associate the house of death and basically the house of the skeletons in the closet.
Yeah.
So
it's also
she's the more dominant power here.
It's also the house of taking in information. So, it's, kind of like the evidence, if you want to call it that. So anyway, she's
the more dominant force just in those three. Again, that doesn't necessarily translate into collective action.
No.
But I think it's important. And I think that, again, I persist that this election, no matter how it may appear right this second, is not done how it's going to go shaken and bacon throughout the next few weeks. And I think there are a lot of issues still to be revealed. Now, that does not necessarily mean that will preclude Trump from being, inaugurated, although I'm not completely convinced, but we'll see. But to think it's just a complete cakewalk from now until January 20th, again, I'm not omniscient for sure, but I just don't really feel that that's the most likely path forward to me at all.
And I would also say to my fellow leftists, Democrats, whatever you want to call them, if you think that the Democrats have just kind of rolled over and gone, okay, I don't think they have. But anyway, Kathy, what did you want to say?
I would like to see when Kamala has her Mars return.
Oh, yes, I can do that.
Yeah, when does Mars hit 21?
Well, this software, I think you need this software. It's a Mac software. Because I can
okay. Yeah, no, that's why I don't have it on Mac anymore.
I can get her exact. So there's one on June the 25th. Do you want the last one or the next one? This is her next one. June 1st, 2025.
She's Mars return. Oh my God.
Oh my God. The moon, the people right there on her Mars return chart. Oh my God. With Mars on her Mars. And Jupiter will then be on her prenatal Venus star point at 28 Gemini. Whoa, I got chills when I saw this chart. I'm like, and look where Venus is. Oh my God. And Chiron and Eris on her moon.
More to come.
Oh, way
more to come.
Way
more.
It's not done yet.
No.
Yep.
It's popcorn on the stove, baby. There's more to come. I don't know how it's going to play out,
I don't.
But I do not feel that it's just like, well, that was good. We're over it now.
Yeah.
It does not have that energy. It has the energy of kind of a chaotic thing. And that's why I think there's so much, volatility likely to happen.
Oh, I think so. I don't see the volatility though as kind of Civil War type volatility that
I don't mean that.
No, I know. I know you don't mean that. I just want to reassure the listeners because people hear that
I don't
word
look at volatility as like physical clashes. What I mean energetically in Andy land, volatility energetically means that there are a lot of things that are happening quickly.
Yeah.
So if you look at, like smooth sailing, like I live on the farm and every 3 years a cow comes, that's a stabilized kind of environment. But what I'm talking about in terms of volatility is lots of things happening kind of all over the place.
Oh, there's going to be so much happening.
And that's what I mean by the volatility in the energy. There's an energetic pattern that happens with people. You can tell they're ready to make big changes. There's a certain kind of energy pattern that they sort of give off. And that is the collective has an energy pattern as well. And that there's a lot of changes. We're moving to Tulsa. I'm getting a new job and dyeing my hair green. That's the energy now. There are a lot of people that are saying, I'm not doing it this way, or this is going to happen. And we take 350 million people like that. That adds a big energetic, it's like a vibratory hum. So that's what I mean. Don't everybody get nervous.
Yeah,
I don't mean it that way. I just mean, and thank you, Louise, for clarifying that. But I just mean that there is a lot of activity. There's a lot of nervous energy, and nervous energy has to find a way to be expressed. And that's why I think when you have a bunch of people expressing nervous energy, when they have unresolved things behind the scenes and they have things they're trying to do and they feel empowered or not empowered, that's the energy we have right today. And it's not just going to be, it's going to be for months, I think.
So Kamala has a strong Saturn, and on her Mars return, it's a bit of a wonky kite, but Jupiter, it's a kite. So we've got this air grand trine to her sun, and it makes a kite to her moon, which has Venus on it in transit. And she's got a strong Saturn anyway in Aquarius because it's the traditional guide for the sign of Aquarius in her 9th house, kind of prosecutor for court, all those things. I do want to mention though, because I've looked at all her charts many times. Her progressed Saturn is in Pisces now, pretty heading towards her midheaven. So again, her story is definitely not over. On her Mars return, Pallas Athena, we've seen Pallas Athena's influence in some of the other charts is going to be almost exactly on her Saturn. There's lots of things we could say, but
and that's on the US moon.
It's on the US moon. Her Saturn is on the US moon. Yeah.
So Pallas Athena will be on the US moon. I'm moving even more toward it because it's at 27.
It will.
Aquarius.
Yeah.
I just had to jump that in.
Yeah. Yeah, no, thank you. I'd forgotten about that. So thank you, because it's affecting all these charts. All these things are affecting all these charts. And if we're looking at her Mars, I think the Mars retrograde will station direct on her natal Hygeia in Cancer, which is in the sign of Cancer, in her 2nd house, which is kind of about healing the divine feminine in a way, or healing that kind of nurturing motherly energy. I don't know which talk it was of hers or which speech, but she was saying, I really do care about, looking after people and things like that. And whether you love her or not, the words were there of what she expresses. So Mars will station direct on her Hygeia, which I think is a good healing sign as well. So again, so many things going on. I think I picked the right Mars return because this is where we're heading. We could look at the current one if you like.
Well, no, that was,
Yeah.
no, I wanted to know where we were heading. But
Yeah.
when you say that the Mars retrograde is going to station on her Hygeia, that is in March?
Yeah, let's have a
February,
look
in
at that.
mid-February.
Let's have a look at that.
Because that's a timing thing.
Yeah, let's have a look at that exact date. So Mars stations.
The software will run on an iPad. If it runs on an iPad.
February the 28th. Mars.
23rd.
Sorry, 23rd. Yeah, will be right on, 24 minutes from her Hygeia, right at the cusp of her second house. So amazing.
In conjunct, the thing I can never remember,
that
those
one?
two.
Pholus?
That one and the one above.
Yeah, so Pholus and her Chariklo, or Chariklo by transit. Pholus is like the Pandora's box of centaurs, kind of bringing things out of the box. You can't put it back in. In her case, I would kind of suggest that this is saying, the divine, with her as an archetypal leader, I think it's like the divine feminine is not going back in the corner. Baby's not going back in the corner, like you keep saying, Andy,
It is trine. Mars will be transiting Mercury. There's a water trine here. Mars will be transiting Mercury in the 10th and Vesta in the 5th.
Oh my God, yes. Oh my goodness.
And it's grounded by her. It's grounded by her Venus.
Yeah, it is. Oh my goodness.
She's not out of the picture, folks. You can call me crazy.
She's not.
Whether she's president or not, she's definitely not out of the picture. She's a very powerful woman with a very powerful message and very well known. So she's going to do something that's important to try to be helpful. And she's a magnet for people. So her career, she's young. She's going to do amazing things, president or no president. So, I think that that's super important on a collective level, because I think it's really important, again, editorial, Andy, I guess, to have women in positions of power and influence so that little girls can see that and they can grow up to emulate that, and we can change it. These white boys are trying to push us back to, like, when we're churning butter. Nobody wants to do that. No. And I think that Kamala is so powerful and dynamic that whether she's in politics or not, she is still going to have a huge impact on the way that people operate in a positive way. She could be Oprah for all I know, but she's going to do something that's pretty incredible, I believe. And thank God. So I love her. I guess that's not a mystery here.
Well, I do. I didn't used to love her till I really got to know her, and I do now too. And but I, just as an, astrology is a lot about archetypes, at least the astrology.
For sure.
I work, just as an archetype, a Black Asian woman who's called Kamala, who's called all those things, who exudes that energy and the joy. She's kind of what we're moving towards, I think. Whether it's her, the person, or not,
sure.
It doesn't really kind of matter.
Yeah, Louise, I agree with all that. Thank you. I mean, I just think that we're moving towards an environment, which is really, I think, what all of Trumpism and MAGA is trying to do, is to stop it, where women really become in positions of influence justifiably based on what they bring to the table. And And so she is a self-made, powerful, dynamic, intelligent woman who's kind and compassionate. And there are a whole lot of other ones just like her all over the United States and all over the world. Yeah. And I think that when these women are let loose more, that life will be better. And I say that day is on the horizon, and we're not going back to churning butter. And, I just don't see that happening.
No, I don't. No. Anything else to look at? Oh, I think we've been quite exhaustive there. I think this was brilliant. And, I think...
Yeah, we've said a lot.
Well, we have. We've said an awful lot. I will upload this to my channel, but I will probably get... I've got a VA now. I probably will get her on my Sunday evening. She's in the Philippines on Monday morning to put chapters so people can go back to spots if they kind of want to make a note of the dates and things like that, because this is
cool.
This is an unfolding story. It is. Yeah. And it's not how it seems at the moment. And to those, a lot of us predicted that she would win the election, and clearly Trump won it, or so it seems right now. But a lot of psychics as well online, as well as you, Andy, and things like that, did the same. But they're all saying this is not finished. This is just not finished too. We are not the only ones who are saying this is not finished. We're just showing you the astrology shows that as well. So. All right, everybody. See you next time.
And Louise, again, thank you so much for inviting me. It's been fun to hang out with you two. So thank you.
Always a pleasure.
We make a good threesome. So